The gospel reading for this morning comes from the gospel according to Matthew, chapter 11, verses 2 through 11. Here we find John the Baptist now in prison, and he's wondering about the one for whom he has prepared the way. Listen to how he asks the question. When John heard in prison what the Messiah was doing, he sent word by his disciples and said to him, "Are you the one who is to come? Or are we to wait for another?" Jesus answered them, "Go and tell John what you hear and see. The blind receive sight, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised up, and the poor have good news preached to them. And blessed is anyone who takes no offense at me." As they went away, Jesus began to speak to the crowds about John. "What did you go out into the wilderness to look at? A reed shaken by the wind? What then did you go out to see? Someone dressed in soft robes? Look, those who wear soft robes are in royal palaces. What then did you go out to see? A prophet? Yes, I tell you, and more than a prophet. This is the one about whom it is written, 'Behold, I am sending my messenger ahead of you who will prepare your way before you.' Truly, I tell you, among those born of women, no one has arisen greater than John the Baptist. Yet the least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he." Friends, this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Reading the signs of Christmas, that's what we're doing this time of year. We see the signs in the beautiful greenery and decorations. We see them in the shopping malls and on the internet, and as we travel to places where we will celebrate Christmas, just as Mary and Joseph made their way to their own home. We're all reading the signs of Christmas these days, aren't we? I remember years ago in another church in Texas that we had a new pulpit hanging during Advent. It hung right here, and it was in Latin, and people were trying, I could tell, they were trying to figure out what the Latin said. And then I picked up a bulletin afterwards where somebody had doodled on it, just like I shared in the e-update. By the way, I don't mind if you doodle during the sermon, just don't fall asleep, okay? And this was very creative doodling last week. Well, anyway, someone had doodled and written on the bulletin there, trying to figure out what the Latin said. And it said on the bulletin, the Latin either says, "Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son," or "Jerry Jones must go." And that could still be said today in Texas. We're all reading the signs of the time and the signs of Christmas, aren't we? We're trying to figure it out. That's what Israel did throughout its whole history. Who is this Messiah? And when will he come, and what will he do? The people of God have been trying to read the signs of Christmas, sometimes very weird signs like a stump of Jesse or a root of David. Or think of the three Ayatollahs from Iran toting their gold, frankincense, and myrrh and having to deal with that trigger-happy Israeli king named Herod, trying to figure out. And the sign for them of Christmas was the star in the sky, or the shepherds who were sore afraid until the angel said, "Fear not," because, back then they spoke in the King James Version, and they were also trying to read the signs of Christmas. For Mary, it was the announcement, "Don't worry, Mary, you're going to deliver the Savior of the world, and God will be with you, worry not." Or the angel who spoke to Joseph and said, "Don't worry about the fact that your bride is pregnant and you had nothing to do with it. God will be in charge, just don't worry." These are the signs of Christmas that people were trying to figure out. Well, John the Baptist was trying to figure them out too. And what I want to suggest to you this morning is that John misread 2 of the signs of Christmas. And maybe we do sometimes too. And if we do, we miss Christmas altogether. How did John misread the signs of Christmas? Well, the first way he misread it was that he was thinking in terms of the fact that God will always make good things happen to good people. And you just have to wait for it. It'll come eventually. We are all waiting. Think about the children about to burst, waiting for Christmas to come. We're all waiting. People in the city and around the world are waiting for something, wondering when something good will come. We all wait. Waiting rooms are well named. We wait for the reports about our loved ones and what's going to happen to them because of some illness they have. The minutes tick like hours as we wait. We are called to wait, says the author of James, and we are called to wait patiently, which means with a kind of stout-heartedness, because we literally trust God. We trust the future that God is bringing in our lives, in our church, our community. We trust, so we wait patiently. To wait impatiently is to have a weak-heartedness about the future. John is trying to figure out who this Messiah is. He's been preparing the way for him, but now he's not sure. Are you the one to come, or shall we wait for another? Says John. You see, John is working on an Old Testament theology of divine retribution, that if you're good, then good things will happen to you. If you're bad, you'll be sick or you will get hurt in some way or another. And John can't quite figure out what's going on and the whole deal with this Messiah, because John is a good person. He's about as good as anybody could ever be. He prays all the time. He shares the good word of God, trying to get people to change their lives. And now he's in prison. And he can't figure it out. Why is God doing this to me? Why am I going through whatever I'm going through? I want you to picture John in prison, thrashing about like a caged animal. He was used to the open air, but now he's confined. Barclay talks about a little cell in the Carlisle Castle where they put a border chieftain for years. And there's a tiny window up at the top, just one window, way up high, too high for a man even on tiptoes to see out of. So every day the border chieftain would put his hands up there and he would pull himself up to stare and gaze at the hills and the dales. He would never ride again. Barclay says there are 2 depressions in the stone where the border chieftain pulled himself up every day. Here is John, stuck in prison, thinking because he lived a good life, good things should happen to him. But this Messiah hasn't even tried to bail him out. He's stuck in prison. He dies there. End of story. It's a reminder that God does not always make good things happen to good people. We don't even have to have Rabbi Harold Kushner tell us that when bad things happen to good people. So the first way that John the Baptist misread the signs of Christmas is that he kept thinking good things, only good things would happen to good people. The second way is that he thought Jesus would bring a religious revival. You see, if the first misreading of the sign of Christmas catches the righteous types, the second kind catches the ultra-religious types who think that Jesus coming is all about the whole town coming forward singing "Just As I Am" without one plea. But that's not what Jesus was about, not according to the text we've read in Matthew this morning. See, John the Baptist is holy and righteous and pious. And he assumes Jesus will be even more that way. He says, I came baptizing with water, he will baptize with fire. See, John the Baptist thinks Jesus is going to be a hellfire and brimstone preacher. But he's wrong. John the Baptist was. He's well named, don't you think? Did you notice he was never called John the Presbyterian? You see, he thinks Jesus is going to come and bring this huge religious revival and more people coming to church, more this and more that. And he's confused. John is stuck in prison while Jesus is out eating and drinking and hanging out with the very sinners that John has been condemning. And not only that, Jesus is hanging out with the homeless and the street people who have been ostracized in synagogue, temple, and home. And not only that, Jesus drank wine, which John would never do. And not only that, Jesus brought more wine and created more wine at a wedding party where they'd run out. I mean, in short, Jesus was nothing that John had expected. Buechner puts it this way: where John the Baptist preached grim justice and saw God as only a steely-eyed thresher of grain, Jesus preached forgiving love and saw God as the host of a marvelous party, or a father who will never throw his children out even if they spit in his eye. John said to people that they had better save their own skins before it was too late. Whereas Jesus said, saving skins is about God, it's God's business, and it's never too late. Even if you blow your old bankroll on liquor and sex like the prodigal, it's still not too late. John, who ate a high-fiber diet of locusts and honey out in the wilderness with the church crowd, was unlike Jesus, who ate whatever he wanted in Jerusalem with as sleazy a bunch as you could ever imagine. In short, Jesus was not what John expected. And it's not so much that Jesus was a party animal, although John was clearly a party pooper, but Jesus was a shock to John, a real disappointment, the way some pastors are to some people. John wanted to bring a religious revival, and that's not what Jesus did. So, what are the real signs of Christmas? Jesus says right here in the text, the blind will see, the lame will walk, the lepers are cleansed, the deaf will hear, and peace is preached to the poor. So there you are. You see, you want to show the real signs of Christmas to the world? Well, you visit the sick and the hurting, lift them up, and you bring peace wherever you are. You admit mistakes and forgive one another, and you bring peace wherever. That's it. Those are the real signs of Christmas. Let me leave you with two poignant examples. It was December 1970. I was in my first year of seminary in Louisville, and I pulled the short straw in clinical pastoral education and had to do my chaplain duty at a charity hospital in Louisville on Christmas Day, and I was not happy about it. It would be the first time I had never been with my family for Christmas. And you know, the people who have to stay in the hospital on Christmas Day are the ones who are in the worst shape. This was a charity hospital. I made my way around. I was miserable. I was unhappy. I felt gypped because I couldn't be home with my family. And I went around to visit. They smelled and they were poor and they were in pain, and it was awful. And then I came to visit, on my very last visit, a girl who was dying. They said she maybe only had a few more days or a week or so. And I came into her room and she grinned at me and she said, "Oh, chaplain, thank you for coming to visit me on Christmas Day. Merry Christmas, chaplain. Merry Christmas. And then I remembered what the real sign of Christmas is. Another example. Last Friday, I attended the annual Christmas breakfast of the Bill Shanks Bible study. Another broken egg. It was amazing. This is as diverse a group as you will ever find in our congregation. They represent as far right and as far left and lots of different opinions, but I was stunned to watch how they loved and respected one another and were joyful and listening to one another, and it hit me. That's the model for our whole church. Not only right now, but as we move forward in the future that God has planned for us. Visiting the sick and the hurting, bringing peace and healing, wherever you are. Those, my friends, are the real signs of Christmas. To God be the glory from this day forth and forevermore. God bless you all.